that was like the catalyst, that's the launching point, is getting vulnerable. And then from there, you just can't get too full of yourself, man. Don't get cocky. Don't think you don't need this shit. And definitely don't let other people's bullshit in the program steer you away from the program. Like, this is a miracle. It's here for anyone that wants it. You know what I mean? And that's one thing I always tell people, Principles for Personalities is there for a reason, because you can't let other people, scare you away.
That was Jason Rudeen, and this is the SHAIR Podcast.
It's time for the SHAIR Recovery Podcast, where we bring you amazing life-changing success stories from addicts and alcoholics all over the world who share their inspiring journey in recovery. And now, here's your host,
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the SHAIR Podcast, and today we have Jason Rudeen joining us on the show, and I hope you guys are prepared for another roller coaster ride. It's an emotional journey that takes you through a severe criminal element, child abuse, abandonment, anger, resentment, fear. Jason was destined for jails, institutions, or death, and through the power of God, HP baby, he found his way to recovery. There's no question in my mind that Jason has a true purpose in this world. It's to carry a message of hope to anyone suffering through this horrific disease. That regardless of the challenges that you face in your life, you can live a life beyond your wildest dreams. And today, his life is absolutely a miracle. I can't wait to jump into his story. So let's dive into Jason's story. But first, a quick message from our sponsor, Organifi. Organifi is an organic superfood supplement that takes 30 seconds to make with no blending, no juicing, and no cleanup. Organifi is a coconut and ashwagandha-infused green juice that is gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free, vegan, and absolutely delicious. My wife and I drink it every single day. We absolutely love it. We've noticed a significant difference in reduced stress, in improved digestion, improved mental clarity, and it boosts our energy levels. So not only is it organic and upgraded with 11 superfoods, if you order now, you're going to get 20% off your order by using promo code SHAIR, SHAIR. So go to the Organifi website, www.organifi.com. Organifi is spelled ORGANIFI, and make sure to put in your promo code SHAIR, SHAIR, and get 20% off your order today. And guys, a quick reminder to please remember to subscribe to the SHAIR Podcast. If you have an iPhone and you listen on iTunes, make sure to click subscribe when you listen to the show. You're going to get a brand new episode downloaded onto your phone every week with a little reminder that lets you know that the SHAIR Podcast just launched its latest episodes. Plus, it's the best way to rank on iTunes. When you subscribe to a show, it increases your ranking in iTunes. And my goal is to have the SHAIR Podcast as the number one recovery resource and podcast in iTunes. So please subscribe, and while you're at it, leave us a 5-star rating and review so I can read it on the next episode of the SHAIR Podcast. And speaking of amazing reviews, I have 2 that I'm going to read, one this week and one next week. The first one's going to be from Caroline Otto, and the next one is from KFO 2000 next week. Both long, beautiful reviews that I feel deserve their own episode. So KFO, I'm gonna mention you next week. In the meantime, Carolyn wrote this. Her title is So Incredible, Grateful for This Amazing Podcast. And she writes, I am the mother of a 19-year-old heroin addict. My husband and our other son and I have been in a living hell of worry, sadness, deep frustration, and all the other emotions that come from loving an addict. We discovered Omar's podcast several days ago and have been listening to episode after episode and every spare minute. His enthusiasm, wonderful laugh, great caring, and amazing interviews are helping us so very much. We're especially grateful that he does not overlook the loved ones who are in the trenches with addicts. Some of his episodes are just for us. All the interviews we have heard so far are engaging, wonderful, and full of helpful information. He asks the same questions of each guest, and because the questions are so good and his guests are so amazing, their answers are gold. He himself spreads plenty of gold from his own experience with addiction and from helping addicts. He is a wonderful person doing a lot of good, as are his guests. Now, if we could only get our son to listen, it could make all the difference for him. Thank you, dear O, with all our hearts. That was a tough one to read, and got me a little choked up because I'm so grateful. How many people get an opportunity to see God work in other people's lives through the work that we do? The podcasts and the interviews and the guests and the SHAIR Facebook private group and the mini episodes, they have just created a vehicle for saving lives, and to be a part of that is overwhelming. And I am just overjoyed and overwhelmed with feelings of gratitude right now. I heard recently Carolyn posted in the Facebook group a story where her son listened to Ed Cohane's episode. And if you have not listened to Ed Cohane's episode, Standing on the Shoulders of Giants, then immediately go and listen to it. It will change your life. These are powerful stories of real people who have experienced enormous amounts of pain and danced with the devil on many occasions to the point of attempting suicide, and come out the other side just beaming HP warriors that are doing God's work. We are not the well, but God, how grateful we are to be the pipe, to be the delivery system, to be able to watch miracles happen before us. I just thank God every single day. It's why I say HP, baby. It's not about me. He gave me a gift, and all I'm doing is just facilitating and using that gift to serve as many people as I can. And I'm so grateful. That's why I just wanted to read Carolyn's message all on its own, because it's so powerful. And the next week's message is just as powerful, that I know what we're doing. We are saving lives together. And nowhere in there do I ever want to take credit for it, nor do I need to. I'm using the gift that God gave me so I can be the vehicle to help save as many people as I can from this disgusting, despicable, deplorable disease that is killing millions of people. And I know that when Caroline's son heard that interview with Ed, it touched him deeply and it planted a seed. And that's all we need to do. We just need to plant that seed. And when they're ready, that seed will grow. It'll blossom. So thank you again, Carolyn. My heart, my prayers, my love goes to you, your husband, your son, and my hope is that this is his magic time, that this is what he needs to hear to get him on the right road, that he has no idea how much love you guys have for him and how much hurt and wreckage he's putting you through. And I know that none of us, our intention is ever to hurt the ones around us. It's just part of what we do. So God bless you. HP, baby, and keep coming back. We need you in that group, Caroline. And for those of you who are wondering what group that is, it's the SHAIR Podcast private Facebook group for addicts. There's over 2,800 of us strong and proud and being of service, and it's private, so nobody else can see you posting in there. But the most important thing is you have an opportunity to be of service. There are so many people in there that are struggling, that need help, that are constantly relapsing, and they need your support. And there's people in there that have a lot of clean time and are constantly lending service and support to those who need it. Be part of the solution. Go to Facebook, go to the search bar, type in SHAIR private group, and ask to join immediately. Jump right in, ask for help, and be of service. HP, baby. And speaking of service and support, holy moly, we had our biggest week ever in donations. And it's all because of just making a point of really asking for it. You know, the guys in the group, again, Darren and Joe and Jude and Rebecca and Liv and Marla, and the list goes on and on and on. I mentioned the ones that have been vocal about making their donation on the SHAIR Podcast private group. And I keep the ones that haven't publicly mentioned their donation in the SHAIR private group, Anonymous. But we got our biggest donation last week for $500, and it just blew my mind. Value. Just what it tells me is like what kind of value we bring to the world and to the recovery community. And these donations are going a long way to helping us grow and put out the best content possible for family members, for drug addicts, for anyone who's suffering because of this horrible, deplorable disease. So, gosh, guys, from the bottom of my heart, you guys know who I'm talking about. The $100 donations, the $500 donations, the $50 donations, and all these new $5 a month donations. There's some of you that have been donating for years now, $5 a month, and now it's growing because of your support and being loud and proud about it. Definitely, we still need more, but wow, this monumental change and help has been massively instrumental. HP, baby. There's a reason why it's happening. There's no way I'm stopping. The momentum is stronger than ever. All of us together in the private Facebook group, all the listeners, the people that email, the people that PM me, everything that's happening right now is divinely guided. We're actively participating in our own recovery and the recovery of thousands. And we're just going to keep doing this. It's going to get better. It's going to get stronger. It's going to get more amazing. And our family is just going to be a force to be reckoned with against addiction. So God bless you all. I love you. And again, $5 a month is all I ask. If you have the wherewithal, 1% of our listener base, if they donated $5 a month, would make SHAIR completely self-supporting. And that's all we need. So if you'd like to donate, go to www.theshairpodcast.com. SHAIR is spelled SHAIR. Click on the donate button on the top right-hand corner of the website, or click on any of the banners, the yellow banners that say donate on the website. $5 a month is all it takes. God bless you all. And thank you so much. I'm blown away and overwhelmed. HP, baby. And in other news, I have recently started working at Costa Rica Recovery as a 12 Steps addiction recovery counselor. And Costa Rica Recovery is a drug and alcohol rehabilitation center. They have been in business now for 11 years here in Costa Rica for English-speaking patients. It is a very affordable drug treatment center as well as a detox center. So if you're going through heroin withdrawals or alcoholic DTs, then you might want to consider checking out what Costa Rica Recovery has to offer. So go to www.costaricarecovery.net so you can get information about the treatment plans and the costs. And then if you have any questions, just email me at o@theshairpodcast.com and we'll set up a call to see if Costa Rica Recovery is the right place for you. Now, a quick message from Transitions Daily and then on to the show. Would you like to join a free, anonymous online group that offers a daily topic email with popular recovery resources accompanied by a secret Facebook group for discussion? Then go to dailyaaemails.com for more information about Transitions Daily. And don't forget to share dailyaaemails.com with friends, in meetings, and with sponsees in recovery. Hey, Jason, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how's it going, man?
It's going fantastic, buddy. How you feeling, man?
Oh, really good, really good.
I love it. Excellent. All right, so folks, today we have Jason Rudeen joining us on the SHAIR Podcast. Jason emailed me to share a story, and Jason participates in AA, NA, CMA. That stands for Crystal Meth Anonymous, for those of you that were wondering, and Life Recovery. He's doing it all. He's 100% abstinence for the first time since he was 11 years old. Nobody would have ever believed that Jason would find recovery. And now he shares his experience on a regular basis in treatment centers. Wherever he goes, he found God and just started working with a new ministry that does a 12-step life renewal program, and he's trained to become a peer recovery specialist. Wow. That sound about right, Jason?
Yeah, man.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
You got your finger on the pulse.
Oh, man. You also mentioned that you're a present father of your 5-year-old son, Wyatt, and you're working towards making amends with your two estranged children of 15 years and their mom. That's pretty awesome, dude.
Yeah, that's been a journey. I think I had to work the steps and get far enough into recovery where all of a sudden I felt compelled to take them steps, like before, I think I always felt like I wanted to, but it was too scary. And yeah, I worked with my sponsor on letters to my kids, and he shot down like 4 drafts, and then the 5th draft, I actually decided to make one to both of them instead, because it's pretty much the same message, that I wanted to convey. And basically what he told me is like to leave a lot of personal like details out. So it was like about a 2-month process to write the letter, but now I got it, and I'm trying to get together with their mother, and then I figure I'll present that letter to her at that time. She has no idea that I did that, but I just told her I wanted to make amends to her, so I'm waiting on her to, it's God's timing.
Right. And that's what a beautiful message. And, for the listeners, this is key, man. Absolutely key. So many of us, when we finally make our way out of the rabbit hole and we finally get a moment to breathe clean air, then all of a sudden, all these thoughts start coming into our heads, and we start feeling the guilt, the shame, the embarrassment, the remorse, the regrets. All these feelings, all these emotions start stirring up, and we want to run out and make amends and try and fix things. But we could, if we're not careful, make things worse. So to write this letter, to meet with your sponsor, to have the humility to actually allow him to correct you and walk you through this process, man, that's you allowing God to do for you what you cannot do for yourself. And I can't impress upon the listeners more that when you're going to go through such a difficult process, that you walk through this with your sponsor, man. You cannot go wrong because you're automatically including God in the whole mix.
Absolutely. I don't know, my first 2 drafts was just verbal diarrhea of my life and all the bullshit that I did and how horrible I felt and how it almost killed me like so many times in my active addiction and all these things, and I didn't know what the fuck to do, and ever since I got into recovery, that's kind of been my mental, my whole idea is like, I just don't know and I need help, and that's okay, and it didn't feel okay at first, but it got there,
Yeah. There's the little guy.
No, that's actually my, my goddaughter.
Okay.
out there.
Well, I tell you what, man, it's a blessing that today, right, there's so much love and family and people surrounding you that aren't a bunch of degenerate drug addict felons. You know what I mean? Like today, it's like you hear a child, laughing or playing in the background. That is not something you'd ever want to be around when you're out actively using. So life just becomes more and more awesome every single day, man. So I'm excited to jump in your story. So let's talk a little bit about what your daily routine looks like, including recovery, Jason.
Okay. Well, I always try to start the day and have a little conversation with God every day. And I got this. I have many daily devotional books, and in early recovery, I think I used to read like 6 or 7 of them religiously every morning, which was great, but like getting out of treatment and getting back to reality and working and I've been progressively becoming more involved in different avenues as far as, recovery is concerned as well, and service work. So I'm really busy now. And so I got this one book, though, I was going to say, it's called Serenity, and it's by Mike Shea, and it's awesome, man. It speaks to me every single day. Every reading is just what I need, and it's a really good book. So I always do my reading, and then from there, I'm pretty much like a lightning bolt, I guess. I'm just like out the door. I'm doing shit, like I'm always on the move. I work full time right now for a restaurant, and that's what I've always done. And it's something I'm trying to get away from. But actually, I put in my 2-week notice yesterday, and I might stay maybe on a part-time basis, but I got a new job doing painting and making more money now. I'm going to start next week. So, it's all progress, and, I just keep doing what I can to change the stuff as far as life is concerned. But yeah, I mean, every day I try to, stay mindful of my gratitude, and just no matter what comes my way, I just try to always hang on to that, because I know I was at a place where I didn't see anything that looked or resembled like hope or anything like that. And now I have hope. I have it all the time. I get major doses of it from listening to this kind of stuff, and it's a beautiful thing, dude. And who knew, who knew life could be hopeful and have meaning and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a beautiful thing.
It trips me out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you used to read 6 daily devotionals every day, and now you're down to 1 that is your favorite, right?
Right. And every Wednesday I read the 24-hour day book, because that's what my home group does. But, and I don't know, sometimes if I have days off where I'm really not doing anything, which is very few and far between, I'll read them all. But yeah, I got them sitting on a table. I got like a little recovery shrine in my room with all, yeah, dude, all my books are lined up, and I have a little box that has the Serenity Prayer on the cover, and it's got all my tokens and key tags and chips from CMA and everything in there. And, I really like, my spirituality came from the program.
Right.
Wasn't looking for God, but I found him, and I'm ever grateful for that. And it was funny because like my higher power was the group in the beginning, and that worked amazing for me. And it was a launching point, but then I found God. And then as I started to develop my relationship with God, it became very clear to me that he works in my life through other people. So really all the time, my higher power was the same. I just didn't know it was God,
Yep. I dude, there's so many of us that have the same story, that, we came in and we absolutely were not looking for God. We were just looking to get out of the hell that we were living in, but then in the course of doing so, then all of a sudden we find that that's exactly what we needed. We needed God in our life more than anything else, because once we embraced that, everything else was possible. It's like as soon as you surrender and you allow that power in, then things just get easier. You're able to turn things over. You're able to pray. You're able to connect and ask for help from a power greater than you, and it's liberating. I'm gonna do a quick plug here, because on my website is Transitions Daily. I don't know if you've heard of Transitions Daily, but what they do is they send an email out every day that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 or 7, maybe more, actually more daily devotionals from that all come into your email. So you can read them all, or you can just read 1, or you can read 2. But it's a quick way to, like, every day you get daily devotionals from, like, it looks like it could be even 10 different meditation readings. And
I could see myself actually reading them if they were emailed to me, because a lot of times it's like, if I'm getting knocked off my square a little bit during the day, I kind of wish that I had those books with me, but they're at home,
Well, I'll send you, it's called Transitions Daily. I'll send you the link. I promote it at the beginning of every episode, because there's so many people that just love it because it's handy, comes right to their phone. They can read the ones they like, leave the rest. But it's a nice. When you said you were reading 6, I'm like, this is a guy that could use everything all in.
Oh, dude. It's like I always tell people, I'm like, I need all the help I can get, man.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Absolutely. And you know what's important too is, my second question is, how do you maintain that conscious contact with the higher power? That how do you maintain that relationship, that conscious contact with your higher power? And that's the first thing you went to. That's what you do on a regular basis. It's something that you've embraced and something that is such a stronghold in your recovery. And that's powerful, man, because, from where we came from, it was literally hell. And, we were Satan's disciples out there for a while, just absolutely destroying everything on our path. And it's a trip, because when I first started going to meetings, I remember going to Glendale. I'm from LA originally, and I went to this meeting in Glendale, California, and there had to be over 100 people, 100 guys in this meeting. And the guys leading the meeting were a bunch of gangbangers or ex-gangbangers, tatted up to the neck, you know what I mean? And still had like the baggy shorts and the white t-shirt, the bandana, you know what I mean? It's scary dudes. Like, I remember walking in going, whoa. And the guy gets up there and starts talking about God. It's like, this is a trip, man. But it's a game changer. It absolutely changes it. And it's why I try and incorporate that question. So I'm glad you tackled that right from the go. So Jason, how much? Go ahead.
I was going to say, you look at it like, in addiction, and especially if you're in the business end, the nasty end of it, like I was as well, you got to be really smart. You got to be always watching and very vigilant. You just have so many resources at your disposal that you use on a regular basis, and it's a nonstop thing. It's like having 3 full-time jobs, at the same time, and especially if it's meth, because then you're, like I was using meth towards the end, and it was like, fuck, dude, I never wanted to go to sleep because I'm losing money, right? But it's like that kind of work ethic and that kind of skill set carries through into recovery, man. And then when we start to work the steps and we develop life of principle and all our morals start coming back to us, and deep-seated beliefs that we really believed in, but we had to set aside, because we were fighting against the principles of the game. And to me, it's like it's mind-boggling to see the changes sometimes in people. It's like, holy shit, like, you are not even the same person. And people tell me that all the time too, and I'm just like, I don't feel different. I just feel I'm sober, but I'm putting that addictive energy and that addictive behavior into positive outlets now. So I'm feeding my soul by the things I do, and it's working for me. And that's how I keep my conscious contact. It's service to others, constant prayer and meditation. And I started working with a new ministry, like you said, and I've just naturally, through the process of wanting to learn about God, ended up befriending like a lot of pastors and like worship leaders and stuff like that have really enriched my spirit and really enhanced my spirituality as well. So it's been a blessing for sure.
Yeah, man, seriously. I mean, having a conversation like that, or having a conversation like we're having, is not something that I would have ever even imagined having, years ago, being so adamant about not being able to connect spiritually, because I was so opposed to religion. And today it's the foundation of my recovery, man, and it's the game changer that made all the difference in my recovery.
God bless you, man.
Yeah, God bless you too, brother. All right, so how much clean time do you have, and when's your anniversary date?
Oh, well, let's see. I think today actually is 11 months to the day of complete abstinence. My date is July 23rd, 2016. I've been in recovery since November of 2015, actively in treatments and, in and out of the meetings. I couldn't seem to stop shooting up for a long time there. And then even once I think March 6th was the last time I did a drug, 2016, March 6th was the last time I did a drug. And then I was still drinking a couple beers, but I wouldn't even catch a buzz, like consciously made that choice to like, I'm not going to catch a buzz, but I'd have like a beer before bed. And, when I befriended who is now my sponsor, his name's Mike Cook. He's a great guy. He was like, man, I was talking about in a meeting or something how I was coming up on 6 months clean, and him and his sponsor Anthony, they catch me outside the meeting after, and they start busting my balls, and they're like, by who? They're like, by whose count, man? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't even catch a buzz, dude. And then they were like, well, that shit don't count. And I was like, all right. And I acted like it was cool, but I'll tell you, man, it sat with me for 2 weeks. I was pretty pissed, and I didn't tell them I was pissed. I just held on to that, and I was pissed off because I didn't think it was a big deal, right? But then it came down to two questions. Do I want to really do this and see if it can change me? Yup. Do I want to work with Mike? Yup. You know, I really respect him. He's got what I want, all them things. So I was like, all right, it's a no-brainer from that point. Even though I'm still like, I feel my instinct fighting it. I'm like, no, I'm going to call myself out. And I went. At that time, I was going to like 6 or 7 meetings a week. In that week, every meeting I went to, I admitted that I had been drinking beers and changed my date and let everybody know. And the feedback that I got, coupled with the amazing weight that lifted for me, which I did not expect because I was sitting there telling myself it wasn't a big deal, you know? It was kind of weird. It was like, what the fuck? You know, it felt great. It felt great to do it. And it's really been no turning back. I think that actually propelled me in a major way into this. Yeah.
Dude, what a fucking great story. I love it. I mean, that is awesome. And dude, there's thousands of us out there, probably millions, that have been through that same spiral, holding on to bullshit. Holding on to something, not even realizing the weight it carries, right? And then somebody calling you on your shit and you being like, what? Yeah, I don't think so, man. You know, having this whole, perspective, this whole different mindset, all right, going into it, and then going in, admitting it, and then you just let it go. Right. And then you realize, like you said, wow, I didn't even realize how much that was weighing on me. And then, of course, how people just love on you, man. People love on you, when you come and because they know how delicate you are. They know where you're at and what it took to come in and say, hey, you know what? I'm not clean. Right. And I got to come clean. And so I'm starting a new clean date. Recently we had this in the private Facebook group. Somebody had posted that in there that, they weren't sure if they had to change their clean date. And then a bunch of people were like, oh yeah, that's a relapse, blah, blah, blah. And she got a little, offended by the whole thing. But the reality is it's like, what am I holding on to? That's the most important question. What is it that I'm holding on to? Because if it's something that's holding me back, then it's always going to be there, and the inevitable, I think with the fallout following that could be so much worse because you hold on to that and you can, one beer doesn't bother me, you know what I mean? Next thing you know, two beers doesn't bother me, and then before you know it, you're banging crystal meth again,
Probably.
It's a simple. It's 1, 2, 3. I'm smoking crack.
Oh yes, sir. That's fucking how I roll,
dude. I love where we're going with this because so far, it's just quantifiable milestones, right? That you can look at and that other people can listen to and go, this is not important. What's important is, your sponsor called you out, and at first, it was like a spoonful of salt, but the humility that it took to just say, okay, I'm going to do this because I want what he's got and I want to recover. And that's more important to me than me holding on to what my perceivable clean date is. And everybody that's listening needs to hear that. You know what I mean? Because there's people that are doing exactly that and letting go. Man, it feels amazing, right?
Yeah, it was hard as hell, dude, for 2 weeks. And then, yeah, really, that was what made it easy, was when I boiled it down to, do I want to do this? Like, is it worth a shot? I mean, what the hell? I got 2 kids I don't know since they were 1 and 3. They're 19 and 17, I think, now. And I got a 5-year-old who's not seen me hardly in the last year because I've been in and out of treatments following my arrest. And, I'm thinking, like, honestly, bro, like, why wouldn't I just say, all right, dude, no more beers? And that was exactly how we said it, too. He was like, he looked at me and went, when I told him I was ready to do it, and I said it at our home group. That was the first one that I actually outed myself. So they were there for the whole thing. Like, when I really took the step, and then I was like, yeah, man, that felt good. And he was like, so no more beers? And I went, no more beers, bro. And we just pounded it. And then I haven't drank or done a pill or smoked weed, even, like, nothing. It's just like a miracle, man. I would have never thought I could even do this in the first place. It's really all of the magic of the steps in the program. And it's funny because, what the way you were describing that whole process is so dead on. And it really does come down to, the willingness, because no matter how bad you want it, whatever, if you're not willing to do what you're suggested, then you're not going to get what we got. And those suggestions will piss you off sometimes, man. They will make you wonder. Like, what does this have anything to do with me quitting drugs? And stuff like that is every time you turn around early in the steps. And then, you start to understand later, at least for me, it's like I think it's really changed the whole process, like changed the way I think and respond to things, because I see the value in allowing myself to be uncomfortable today,
There's a lot of, Mr. Miyagi magic shit going on in there, man. Wax on, wax off, for real, dude. Seriously, yeah.
No doubt.
Just listen. Just take the suggestions and let the miracles and the magic happen. Period.
Yes, sir.
All right, so Jason, tell us how old you were the first time you drank or used drugs, and more importantly, how did they make you feel?
Okay. I think, aside from, I think that I picked up like a cigarette and was drinking some sips of beer as early as like 5 or 6. My dad had his old house. He had a bar in the basement, and a few family friends and a couple of the uncles and aunts were come over regularly on the weekends. They all kind of worked, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 type jobs. So, the weekend was time to get down.
Right.
And it was fun as a kid, that whole environment. We had like dartboards, and we had Nintendo and all this shit, hooked up there. I think horseshoes in the backyard. So we'd play a lot of games and, stuff. And like, it was kid friendly, but they would, later at night was when shit would get weird after they thought we were sleeping. And, but yeah, like if I'd come downstairs late at night, when they started doing some shots and stuff, fuck yeah, my dad would give me a little cup with a little bit of beer in it, maybe like an inch and a half. And then I'd drink it right up and I'd want more. And he'd be like, no. Or they'd pass out or end up disappearing with a burning cigarette in the ashtray, and I'd go over and I'd try it. So, I was always curious, and I always had it around me growing up. My mother was a bad alcoholic too when I was young. So, it was everywhere, the drinking especially. So, but I think the first time that I really started, doing stuff was about 11 years old, when I smoked weed and drank, and I would, sneak the hard liquor from mom's bottle, put a little water in it, or, I'd creep into her room and steal some cigarettes out of her pack. Only if it was about a half to 3/4 of a pack could I get away with it. She would always notice those. Just dumb shit, but I was young.
Absolutely. All right. So you're warmed up, Jason. So it's time for me to turn this show over to you. It's time for you to share your story, the battle against drugs and alcohol, the wreckage it caused in your life, when you hit rock bottom, and then finally your journey into recovery up until today. So Jason, take it away, buddy.
All right. Well, yeah, like I said, my family, chemical dependence was a big part of both families early in my life. My mom still drinks, but she's much, much better than she used to be today. She's been an unwavering support for me, so I could never, in anything that I say here today, don't ever think that I don't love my mother. But I did have a lot of resentments for her earlier in my life that I think helped propel me into, mind expansion and just numbing out feelings. So for me, growing up, single mother home, my parents had me and they were together until I was about 1. And what had happened, this shit's crazy, was they, it was like Thanksgiving or something. He brought her home to his parents' place. And when they were getting to know one another, turned out that my dad's mom is like my mom's dad's like half sister or some shit.
Oh.
Like my dad and my mom were like second cousins once removed or something, I guess.
Oh shit.
Which is what do you call it? Like legally, like they could have got married. Like they're not blood related.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay. All right.
But either way, so their relationship was doomed. So they could never be together. And my mom, I think, was so crushed. She always had a problem with relationships then after that. And so always with married dudes or, one night stands type situations. Like she was a commitment phobe to this day.
Got it.
So like for me growing up, it was, every other weekend at dad's, domestics over there sometimes with him and his wife, domestics at my house with my mom and my little brother and sister's dad, who's a different dad than mine, but he was there from the time I was like, I don't know, like 6 till I was 10. And during those years, like when I was 5, my mom got in this motorcycle accident and it was like the worst accident in the history of Minnesota. She had her head was the size of a watermelon. She was in a coma for like 4 months or something. Like she was in the hospital for longer, and I had to move around with family. So I was at my uncle's for a few months, and my cousin Alan, who was 16, I was 5. He was like my daycare, and he molested me like every day for that 3 months. And then I got away from him one day and ran down the street, buck naked, 5 years old, ring this doorbell, lady answers, and I'm like, my cousin made me suck his pee-pee and stuck his finger in my butt. And she was like, what?
Oh.
Called the cops. And I literally think that I just was like, as soon as I got removed from that situation, I think that my little 5-year-old brain went, yep, that's over, and just put it in a little box. And I didn't remember it. Like, I think I blocked it out of my memory, and that didn't come back to me until I was like 12. And I started having recurring nightmares and shit, and that was fucked up.
Dude.
But, yeah, so then my mom recovers, right? She gets well, but she's not the same. Everybody in the family always refers to that. Like, after the accident, she wasn't the same person, She had a really short fuse and very aggressive and angry and very much loved to drink. She was a hardcore drinker for a number of years after that, and I was forced because she met Dave, my brother and sister's dad, and I was forced to basically, be the live-in daycare from the time I was 8 until 13. My brother was born when I was 8, my sister when I was 10. So I was raising up 2 babies, as a little kid,
Right.
Cooking the meals, changing diapers, all that shit. So
unbelievable.
And then when they were home, it was domestics and shit all the time,
Real quick. What does that mean, domestics?
Oh, domestic situations, like physical altercations.
Okay.
Loud yelling matches. Like a domestic situation is like between like spouses.
Got it. Okay.
Like any kind of like assault or whatever.
Yeah, when somebody files a domestic abuse report, a domestic disturbance, or okay, I got you.
That's family, or spouses. So for me, I think that just the things that I went through at a young age made me grow very weary and made me grow so wise beyond my years that I couldn't relate to kids at school. I couldn't relate to anything, and I had a really hard time focusing in school. I found it very trite and boring, and mundane, and I hated the cliques and all that shit. So I just thought people were retarded. And when I was 13, my mom kind of got on the wagon. She, I think, did the steps back then. Actually, she was just recently telling me, and I was like, really? You did the steps? And she's like, yeah, and it helped so much. And then, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but to find that out, since I've been into this thing. But no, I was like, right away when she started being a present mother, I started acting out, man. I was vandalizing shit constantly. I was sneaking out of the house. I was doing all sorts of drinking and pot smoking, like nonstop, dude. I started selling weed when I was 15, and just a couple months into doing that, I ended up meeting a guy who was my cousin's boyfriend, actually, at the time, who sold crank, coke, and weed, and like sometimes shrooms and ecstasy and stuff. So I ended up hooking up with this guy on a front basis at first, and I sold drugs for him for many years. And and then all of a sudden, all the kids that were mean to me in school and all that stuff, they wanted to be my best friend because I was a dope man.
Yep. Respect.
And I'd tell them straight up too. I'd be like, don't fucking come up on me acting like you're my friend. I remember how you treated me. I'm like, here's the deal. If you want some of this stuff, I'm like, I got it, and just give me the money and be on your way, man. Like, I'm not your friend.
Right.
And then I'd be like, don't worry, I'm not mad. I ain't salty. I'm not going to talk about it again. I just want you to know, like, flat out, don't waste my time with that shit. And they'd send them on their merry way with their sack, and it was the way that I kind of got through high school and all that, and I met a girl I think I was in 9th grade, and she was just the one, man. Like, we were together for 7 years. That's my first 2 kids' mom. I loved her so much. And, unfortunately, in hindsight, now I see that I really, I just wasn't willing to compromise my lifestyle for her or the kids,
Yep.
And I didn't see that back then. I didn't even really see the connection. Like, she would bitch at me about drinking and smoking and doing this and that, but I never really connected the dots, I guess. I didn't really understand what the problem was, like when we had the kids, I wanted to have like a couple beers at the end of the night and smoke like a couple hits of weed after I put them to bed, and she'd get all weird about it. And I don't know, I just got defensive, and I just don't know. I ended up ultimately leaving the home because I think she had really bad postpartum depression with after having our daughter Audrey, and it just wouldn't end. Like, dude, she She wouldn't talk. She wouldn't tell me what was going on. She wouldn't let me sleep in the room. God forbid I try to touch the girl. You know what I mean? So obviously sex life is moot at that point, and I'm sleeping on the chair most of the time. So, and I was 21.
Oh man, rough.
And and I was like, it ate at me for like 6 months, dude, just so bad. And I didn't know what the fuck to do. And then I fucking did the dumbest thing I could do, which was like, she was at work, the kids were at grandma and grandpa's, and I just packed all my stuff, put it in the back of my Ford F-250 pickup truck, and
bailed.
Put a tarp over it and went to my mom's. Yep.
Oh, wow.
And then I tried to call, and she wouldn't answer at all. And it took 3 months of calling to get her to answer. And I went, finally got her to answer, and she had said, okay, you can come over and see the kids. To my parents, it was Easter Sunday, and it was at 5 o'clock. I remember she said, come over at 5. So I get over there, and I was so excited. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And then I get there, and my little girl, she wouldn't come out from behind grandma's leg for a while. And I remember that she was sitting there staring at me, the whole time, hiding behind grandma's leg. So I'm like, she doesn't remember me or what, It had been about 3 months since she's seen me, but I was with her for the first 9 months of her life, so I didn't understand what the hesitation was. But anyway, my son was 3 years old, so he's like ready. He's on me right away. Right. We're playing trains, and he's showing me some thing on the computer that he was playing with. And then finally, about 20 minutes into the visit, my daughter comes out, and then I'm loving her up. And literally, dude, like 25 minutes after I get there, the kitchen timer goes off, and they were like, oh, dinner's ready. You got to go.
Wow.
No warning, nothing, just really matter-of-factly, just like that. And I remember I was so angry. And I went out to my truck, and looking back, this really is disturbing to me talking about this, because it's, looking back, I see what a selfish little prick I was. But I get in my truck, and I slammed the door, and I fucking started kicking my dashboard, and I cracked it, and then I was punching shit, and I stabbed like about 15 holes in my steering wheel with the knife I had in the car, and screaming at the top of my lungs, just total temper tantrum, right? And I squealed out of there, and I remember verbatim saying to myself at the top of my lungs, I will never fucking put them in a position to hurt me like that again. Instead of recognizing how huge that was that they invited me to their home, despite the fact that her parents blamed me for her addictions, despite the fact that our relationship was volatile for the last few years, to say the least. Despite all of these things, they allowed me to come in. The door was open, man, and I fucking dropped the ball on that shit, and looking back, there's a lot of regret that goes along with knowing this now, because before I had a victim mentality. I spent my whole life like I'm the victim, and that, my friend, is the root of, maybe it's a sexual abuse, maybe it's the raising the kids, but I think that's what broke me. Losing my kids, I lost my identity, and then I moved up to Hinckley. And I ended up meeting the first girl I met, man. We were dropping a fridge off at her house, like a charity case. The guy that moved in with had a fridge for her, and we were delivering it. And we sat down and had a cocktail, and she was in her kitchen, and I seen her looking at this spoon, and it was bent.
No, boy.
Oh, yeah, and I looked at her, and she seen me looking at her, and I just kind of because dude that I was with didn't do that shit. So I was real sneaky about it. I just did like a little hand motion, like I was pushing in a plunger towards my arm, with that "do you" kind of look in my eyes, like, do you?
Right.
and then she goes, and then she's like, me too, kind of under her breath, or didn't say anything, but gave me that look. So there it was, man. And we connected, and yeah, I was immediately on the self-destructive. That was the first time in my life that I was really self-destructive, like a blatant disregard for my own well-being kind of addiction going on. So I think that lasted a couple of years, and I had a mental breakdown, and I ended up deciding I was going to quit banging, and I still drank, still smoked weed, but life improved a bit. I ended up that's when I started cooking, and I worked my way up quick in that business, and I ended up working up to kitchen manager, and I had all this false pride, man, because I was like, I'm fucking running shit, and I don't bang that shit, like I don't touch that hard shit, that dumb shit that fucked my life up before. And yeah, I guess those defenses caused me to stay blind. And, eventually, as you stated earlier, things escalated to another low, and then it's like you can think you hit your low, but you always seem to hit another low, or,
yep.
or the bottom falls out from under you. But yeah, I ended up marrying that girl. That was a really smart one. We were together for about 6 years, and we had quit dope for like 2 years at that time, that I was just mentioning, and then we ended up getting robbed. And when we got robbed, they got all of our money for our rent and shit. So we ended up getting kicked out of our apartment, and her brother had offered to let us come move to Minnesota, and offered me an assistant manager position at his Perkins, and that was my first manager position for Perkins. And yeah, life was good, but we were like, man, we missed him so much, and we used to party, right? So we were like, we gotta have a fucking blowout. That was the dumbest decision ever, man, because he had the best dope, like, I think I ever did in my life. And I mean, that's a stretch, but it was straight up like Mexican mafia. Like, I don't know what the hell they put in the shit, but it was the craziest meth. You lose your fucking mind on this shit, like, right away, and we bought a ball of it, like, all threw down. And that was like we hadn't done the shit in like 2 years. So we were like, we can handle this shit. And no, we couldn't.
Nah.
Literally, just wow. Just like this last time, dude. That was the beginning of a downward spiral that ultimately, short version with that marriage, destroyed the relationship. Both of us were borderline suicidal. She was very physically aggressive at that time, and I was fighting every ounce of myself not to smash her in the face, and that scared me because that's not in my nature. So I filed for divorce and kicked her out. And then moving on from there, I just, I went to treatment at about 6 months after that or something, I think, maybe a year. I got my own place, and I was like still running the Perkins at that point. That was when I was like running it. But they was like, dude, I just one day it was like, I can't fucking do this anymore. I need help. And I knew this guy that'd been to treatment like 15 times that helped me with that process and told me where to go, to Health and Human Services, and to talk to this guy, Darwin, who was really cool. And I went there and I asked for him, and they said, yeah, we'll get you an assessment. And then I went and did that, and they called me and told me 3 weeks. And I was like, maybe a half hour after that phone call, I called back, and I like broke down to this woman I never talked to in my life. And I was like, I can't make it 3 weeks. I'm going to die by then. And because at this time, I mean, I had all this 2CB stuff. It was like some synthetic, like, acid or something. It's like some weird, like, labbed up scientific shit. and you barely could touch any of it. And like, I was shooting that up. I was shooting up coke. I was shooting up meth. I was shooting up heroin. I was doing all sorts of pills and drinking and smoking weed all day, every day. I mean, I was a mess, right? So I just knew that I was like running short on time there if I was going to keep living that way. And I couldn't even like function emotionally, mentally, even at all. I quit my job. So yeah, I went to treatment and I went in there hardcore, ready to change, sucked up all the info I could, and it worked. You know, I felt great leaving it. Getting home, I did what they said and I cut ties with all my friends. And then I didn't want to go to meetings. So what did I do, man? I sat there alone when I wasn't at work. And I was miserable, and I wrote dark poetry and cried, and, you know, I was just miserable. It was that white knuckling thing they talk about in the rooms, right?
Right.
So I didn't know what the fuck was wrong with me, but I was like, well, now I feel like I just want to blow my fucking brains out, right?
Oh, man.
So I ended up smoking and drinking again. And then almost 8 years I went without doing it. Met another girl, fell in love with her. She was much younger than me. She was 22. I was 30. And, you know, we had a kid, and that's my 5-year-old son, Wyatt, now. And we did get married. She pushed me in a lot of ways, like as far as to try to better myself. I started going to college to become a chemical dependency counselor, even though I was still drinking in the bars once in a while and smoking like some oneies. You know, I thought, I could do that, yeah.
Oh, shit, on the job training, I guess.
I don't know. That's so stupid looking back. But I mean, at the time, I was like, no. People would challenge that, you know, at the bars, and I'd get very on my soapbox about,
of course,
how much I changed and how much I understand things better and how much I know I can help people and blah, 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 blah. So it's kind of funny, but at the time I thought it would piss me off if people would say that.
Of course, you know, soapboxing from the bar stool.
Right. It's kind of retarded. So I ended up, I think my drinking started getting out of control while I was going to school, and I was in a pool league on Wednesdays, and I was on like a bowling league too every week. So I was like getting hammered drunk those nights. And, you know, we had a newborn, and she wasn't having it, man. Like a couple nights I didn't come home and stuff. And then she came over to the bar. I remember this distinctly one day, and I think I shattered my trust with her that moment. Because I used to have it all planned out, right? Like I'd order a pitcher about 15 minutes before the game was done, the last game, and then I'd have that excuse to stay because she'd always want to go right home. And I'd be like, well, I got to finish my pitcher of beer. So, yeah, I know, I'm a little manipulator. So she comes back about a half hour after one of these nights when I pull my little fast one, and somebody's like, dude, Mandy's outside. And I'm like, okay. And I get out there, and she's pulled right up by the door. She's got this fucking super upset look on her face. I'll never forget that look. And my son's in the back seat in the car. And she says, are you coming home soon? And I was like, of course, babe, you know? And she's like, I want you to promise Wyatt.
Oh.
And I was like, why don't you believe me, right? And then she's like, Jason, I haven't heard it before, so I want you to promise him this time. We'll see if you make good in your promise to him. And so I did. I said, I promise, buddy, I love you. And I gave him a kiss on the forehead. And then when she pulled away, she kind of squealed her tires, and I just could feel the tension, you know. And my initial response is this. My initial response is, fucking asshole. I'm like, fucking bitch.
Ugh.
Fucking who does she, who does she think she's telling? Like, all she does is fucking put me down and this and that, and, self-pity, right? And anger and projecting and blaming and fuck, I could name it all. And it all rolled up into one simple statement, fucking bitch, And it was over, dude. I fucking went purposely out to my boy's house, got hammered fucking drunk, didn't go home, skipped work the next day because I was drunk as fuck still. And that was it, man. She ended up, within the next 2 weeks, man, she was hanging out with this guy all the time, and I could tell something was going on. I tried calling her on it a couple times, and I think she had checked out at that moment when I didn't come home. And I couldn't see it. I couldn't admit that my wrongdoing there. So I carried that as another victim role, after that. And, like she kicked me out of the house. Of course, we ended up getting divorced about 1.5 years later. I pined for her for 6 months while I was trying to find my way to the bottom of a bottle and acting like a fucking idiot and causing scenes in the bars and everything else. So it was like one of the lowest points of my life. And I ended up eventually moving out, going to my mom's. I kind of chilled on the drinking and started doing good about working again and stuff. But then I met a girl and relapsed on meth with her on a date. And 10 months later, I'm in the back of a squad car I had almost 3 ounces of meth, about an 8 ball of cocaine. I had a half ounce of nugget. I had like 7 Suboxone strips, like 15 Klonopins, probably about 12 Seroquels.
Jesus.
And then, hold on, I wasn't done. I was just like, and then I had like 2 scales and tons of rigs, like clean ones, thank God. They had enough on me and all this shit when I got arrested. So, I mean, it took off from I'm dating this stripper, and it's this fun, hot, like little thing, to all of a sudden I'm selling for the cartel, and then, I'm using my own supply. So I was so fucking strung out. I needed all that shit to help me sleep and stuff, It was crazy.
Wow.
It was crazy. It was like a fucking blur, man. And thank God I never got caught in my younger years selling. Holy shit. I was that way back then too, but I wasn't as out of control with the using part. So, and even like this time, I was very business minded about it. Like, I mean, my loyalty stayed intact with my sources and everything like that, after the arrest. And I just ended up, the only reason I didn't go to prison for 10 years was because I fucking worked my ass off in therapy, and I took parenting class and anger management class, and I fucking went balls deep into recovery like a madman. I took to recovery, what all those little cliches they teach you in the rooms, man, all of them, I took them to heart. Every single one. Like I fucking didn't have sex for almost 6 months. And then when I did, it was another person in recovery, and we talked about it, and we decided that we wouldn't do that anymore because it was going to distract us. And we both chose to listen to what people were telling us instead of what our hearts wanted.
Right.
And then, so now I'm almost up to 1 year complete abstinence. And I mean, I've only had sex with that, one girl, and then another one really, really recently, but I'm in a way different place now. But it's like literally barely ever. And the whole time, no dating, nothing like that. Like I tried my hardest to adhere to that, like keeping my focus on me. And I think that is something that everybody should do because it paid dividends, man. Like I actually feel comfortable in my own skin now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's a miracle. And the fact that I am starting to feel like, worthy of love is kind of weird, so like I think I've earned it now at this point. But I think that's really important, and a lot of people get sidetracked with that shit, and it's sad to watch because nobody wants to hear that shit, if you're trying to tell them not to do it. But I just really, I take these things to heart that people teach me around here, and I try to meet guys like you and women, that are strong in their recovery, and not only that, but proactive about doing what they can to give back and help others and spread the message, man, because I never knew there was hope. We're giving hope to the hopeless, bro.
Yep,
and that's
absolutely.
And that might seem, oh God, I'm getting all emotional here. That might seem like not a big deal to some people, that like, you sit and record a podcast, like, ooh, you spend like a couple hours on your computer. Yeah, well, you got to edit that shit too. But I mean, either way, that is a big deal. It's a huge deal. The amount of people that could get reached by this, the longer it exists and the more time that there is for the word to spread, is like, it's sky's the limit, man. There's no limit, and these are the things that give us the ability to become willing to do this recovery thing, is witnessing the miracles, hearing the stories, getting that hope for the first time in our lives that we never had before, It's pretty cool.
It's absolutely beautiful. And that's your story.
It is, I mean, there's so much shit, dude.
Dude, you know what? I want to know, how'd you get out of the, like, you were selling for the cartel, right?
Yeah. But I didn't wall, and they wanted me to, and then they still signed me out of jail though, dude. And I was like, what? And a couple of my buddies had explained that to me, that like, that's the process, like they cut you loose because then they know you're going to scurry to the crack house and they're going to fucking lead them right back to the big fish, And I didn't do that. I went home and I was too fucking scared to lose my son to do anything. So I sat there and I pulled my little strings from my house, and I called in the credit. I had about 2,500 on the streets. I think I collected all but 400 of it, and then it was calling in favors, and I started selling off some of my shit, in trade. Eventually, I got to a point where I wasn't willing to trade any of my stuff. Obviously, I was in no shape for public consumption, let alone had zero to no motivation to work or anything like that. And I went online and I applied for New Beginnings Treatment Center, and I put myself in there. And that started the journey, man. And
unbelievable, man.
It's
a wild story, dude. Like it's
crazy.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. And
the last time I did dope, dude, I'll tell you this one real quick, because it's a pretty good illustration of how fucking much I hated my life. It was the last time I traded. I traded my laptop. It was the last thing I traded. Got a teener for it. I did a couple, blasts that first day, and they were big, but they weren't doing shit to me. So I purposely sat down, dumped all of the dope. I think I had a little over a gram into a ladle, and just broke it all down. And I sucked it up into 2 needles, 200 units, and they were full. They were sludgy, man. And I was like, both of those blasts were over double the biggest blast I had done since I shot up again. So I was like, that'll do it,
Right.
Like, I'm sick of this shit, and let's just say I did one, the first one, and I had put away the other one. And by the time I was about halfway done injecting that first one into my arm, tremens came over my body. My hand was shaking like a fucking leaf with that needle in my arm, and I somehow managed to get it all in there without missing. And then 10 minutes later, I'm fucking flying, obviously, and I got a thought in my mind about my girlfriend. I thought she cheated on me or something, and I got pissed off, and for some reason I said fuck it, and I grabbed the other one, and I did that too. And
Jesus,
I had the most terrifying experience I've ever had in my life. For like the next 15 hours, I was in a meth-induced psychosis that just was insane. It broke me down to my core, man. That was my spiritual awakening. It was. I was wailing out cries to a God I didn't know was there on the floor in my house, just freaking out with all the windows open, dude, and like wailing like some kind of wild animal. I don't know. It was nuts. So I called my old sponsor and I was like, dude, I'm supposed to be to work in an hour. And I told him everything. And he was like, write this shit down. And I was like, okay. And he said, I want you to call me every day. And he's like, even if I don't answer, you leave me a voicemail. And he's like, this is what I want you to tell me every day. Tell me one thing you're doing for your recovery. Tell me 3 things you're grateful for. And he's like, and then I want you to say a prayer every day, even if it's just saying, hey, God, I'm here. He's like, just do something simple, small. If that's all you can do, it's cool. He's like, just at least if you're acknowledging that something's out there. And I'm like, okay. I thought it sounded dumb, of course. Then he wanted me to set up therapy, which I did. And I was going twice a week for like the first 3 or 4 months of it, religiously. And I was hitting a meeting every day, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 meetings a day. I reached out. I actually walked in the rooms like a dog that just like pissed on your bed, tail between my legs. And I was like, I know I don't know any of you people, but I really, really need your help, man. Like, I need help. I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And I want to die. And I don't want to feel this way anymore. I need your help. And people surrounded me, bro. And everything changed from vulnerability. That was the key to my freedom, So that's it.
Dude. Just the most amazing spiritual experience of almost anybody's life. So many God shots in there where you should be dead. And, here you are as a testimony to recovery and asking for help, like truly asking God for help, because that's where it kicks in. You get in this, you finally reach out, you reach this, this absolute demoralizing end. And the only thing you have left is to pray to something, right? Mm-hmm. To either take you out or take you in.
I got goosebumps, man. I'm telling you, you're right, man. It's like they tell you every time you go to church and you're struggling or you're feeling like your God's not there. I've heard people tell me that my whole life, that God's always there. You just have to invite him in, and that's it, man. And I didn't even it wasn't even like a conscious effort to do that. I just did. I don't know what the hell. I was tripping, man. I just was screaming.
Yeah. And we've been there. I've been there. And then it's just that fleeting moment where the right message comes in and you're able to just take action immediately, and ask for help. And you call your sponsor, you know what I mean? And then on top of that, listening to him, taking the direction. That's just God working in your life because, you wanted him to. I mean, at that moment, right, it's like, I need this. I need to connect with a higher power. You call your sponsor, he gives you the directions, and then the rest is almost like a blur, right? Yeah. Like the rest is almost like you go into this autopilot mode, and here we are on
It's been awesome.
Yeah.
It has been so awesome, dude. I've learned so much. I've met so many awesome people, dude. And I mean, people tell me all the time how great it is to see what I'm doing, and they want to get involved, and I'm inspiring people, and I see that happening around me, and that's awesome. I love it, but it's all God, man. I give all the glory to God because he is the one that changed my circumstances. He is the one that changed my heart. He is the one that changed my eyes, everything, my thinking, everything is different now. And it's not way different. I'm still a sick fucker, and all that. but I'm a much more responsive with the matters of the heart. And empathy and wanting to really just wanting the best for people. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. I say that all the time. HP, baby. You know?
HP, baby. I like that.
Say it all the time, dude. HP, baby.
I know. I actually have. I've noticed a couple times, and I was like, nice. I like that. I can't believe I forgot to plug it. I was kind of nervous. I was gonna like say it to you.
Bring it, man. Say it with pride.
Thanks for throwing it in, bro. Thanks for throwing it in.
You got to bring it in because I feel the same way. All glory to God, you know. And for me, it was tough in the beginning to say that, but I could resonate with the higher power, and so you know, I could get behind the whole HP baby thing. And then as I got more comfortable in recovery and I started to sponsor guys and do service, and I remember a few times, you know, people would come up to me and say, and I remember, you know, one kid in particular, his dad came to the meeting looking for him because he couldn't find him, you know, but he knew where the meeting was and he knew I was sponsoring him. And he's like, hey, listen, do you know where he is? You know, I really want to find him, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I don't know where he is, you know, but have him call me when you see him, you know what I mean? And he's like, you know, thank you so much for all the work that you do. You know, I really appreciate it. No matter what happens, you know. And I say, you know what, I'm just doing the best that I can with what's been freely given to me. I'm just giving that back. You know, I give all the thanks to my higher power, to God. And I always do, man. You know, like I have a, you know, just like the rest of us, a giant ego that needs to be fed all the time. And so I just quickly try and deflect as quickly as possible to what's important. And that's to remember, not just to myself, but also just let people know, you know, everything that I say is regurgitated to the best of my ability. It was taught to me by my sponsor, and it was taught to him by his sponsor. And, you know, it's all divinely guided, you know, because it quickly gets me out of me.
Right.
You know?
That's funny because I say something similar to people all the time. I go, what you see here and what you hear here is not me. This is the program.
I love it.
I tell them that all the time. I'm like, this is the program you're listening to.
That's fucking great.
In HD.
HP, baby. HP. All right, Jason, man, wow, what an amazing story. And it's wonderful that you're out there sharing this message in treatment centers. Because, you know, I've talked to some people even recently who are really having a tough time taking that first step. You know what I mean? Like letting go of this crippling disease that's got a hold on them, really making the commitment to getting to a meeting, asking for help, doing what we've done. It's so important that's the message that people hear, that as difficult as it is to take that first step, here's what happens when you do. These amazing miracles happen in our lives, you know, and to hear somebody who has done the amount of drugs that you have done, who has, you know, been to prison, who has been in institutions, who has almost died, you know, and to go, wow, man, if he can do it, you know what I mean? I can do it. And I tell people this, I go, dude, if you can just find a way to make it into the rooms and tell your story, that's doing service. Because, yeah, period. Get in there.
Even if you're high, man, like, we need those people just as much, you know, like, because they remind us of, like, oh my God, I remember feeling like that. Like, I know exactly where that dude's at, and I'm so grateful I'm not there today, you know, and then we want to help them get out of it.
Absolutely. So keep doing what you're doing, man. Seriously, it's a very, very powerful message.
I'm moving, man. God is on the move. It's happening.
It is, man. Absolutely. Yes. All right. So listen, let's start closing up. And the way I like to close up is for the newcomer. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions about your early recovery. And I want you to respond with inspiring answers you can share with our newcomers. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. So number 1, what was keeping you from getting clean or staying clean when you first got introduced to recovery?
I guess I would say my own reservations. You know, I'd look at the steps or like talk to people about what you had to do, and I'd be like, fuck that. You know? It's basically it.
Lack of willingness.
Yeah, there was none of that. Or open-mindedness. And, maybe there was a little honesty, but I was always pretty blunt, so I probably had some honesty. But
That's fucking awesome. So number 2, at what point did you have a spiritual awakening, that aha moment in recovery, when you accepted you were powerless over drugs and alcohol, but for the first time had developed the hope that you could recover?
I think it probably came a few weeks after that first meeting that I went to, that I actually opened up, and I talked about it a little bit ago. That one where I was like, I don't know you guys. I've seen some of your faces, but I never talked to you, and whatever. I don't know any of you at all, but I need your help, and that started it. Because, it's like a conversation starter, right? And it's like the best kind, because it opens the door to conversations about real, tangible, important, meaningful things that are killing us, and then it gives them the opportunity to start telling me about the solution, man. And I didn't know what hope was until I did that, but I couldn't do it until people were in a unique position to relate to the things I was going through personally,
Absolutely, man. It's one of those things that it's so undeniable. And I remember going to my first meeting, just beat up from the ground up, and just listening to these people share in there and just knowing I think I can recover here. Like really feeling it. You know what I mean? Like you'd lost all hope, and then you walk in and then you're like, I think I can do this. And
right.
It's been so long since you'd felt that feeling. It's awesome, dude. I fucking love it.
I remember that first moment too, of like not exactly exact moment, but I just remember that feeling because I actually asked my sponsor, like, what is that? I'm like, here, it had been probably a week since I had done any kind of like step work or anything that was really like hard or uncomfortable. So it was just like, by all standards, like a regular week going on, and all of a sudden it like all hit me at once, and I had this elation and this kind of this Zen-like experience, and I was like, I don't get it. And he's like, it's called delayed gratification, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, he was like, you do these things and then you get delayed gratification. He's like, it's the kind that don't go away. He's like, we're used to instant gratification, and that shit wears off, and you come down and you crash and you feel like shit and whatever.
Those moments, those aha moments where somebody says something to you and the light bulb goes off, man, yeah. I love that shit. I was
like, I want more delayed gratification, bro.
I actually miss some of that. When I hear these and I remember what it was like almost once a week, somebody would say something. I'm like, oh my God. Like I was like, this is, whoa. Wow. This is like some Mystic Pizza shit. Like, wow. Like it was mind blowing. Right. And then later
Dude, you just dated yourself with that reference.
Totally.
That's funny.
I love it. All right. So, Jason, do you have some favorite books that you would recommend to our newcomers that you read in early recovery?
Oh my God, bro. I've been on a kick with this stuff.
Bring it.
All right. If I had to pick a few of them, I think The Power of Vulnerability by Brené Brown is amazing stuff. It's real tangible, very practical information, tons of wisdom in there. I mean, she helps figure out how to, overcome shame and guilt and feelings of not belonging and all these things. Like, I don't know, and it really comes down to the core of what your mission is, sharing helps addicts in recovery, allowing yourself to bare your soul to others and tell your story, and walking into your story like that, putting the jacket on yourself, is so freeing, man. And that's what that book's about. So it's called The Power of Vulnerability. I guess another one, I've been reading the hell out of some books lately. I've really been personally, for my spiritual aspect, getting a lot out of this I got this thing called Whispers of Hope by Beth Moore, and it's like a devotional prayer. It's 70 days of devotional prayer, and it teaches you how to pray more effectively. And it's got like daily readings in there, and then it's got some scriptures that you can look up, and then you pray, and then you log your prayers in there. And it's like 6 different ways, and it's cool because it kind of taught me how to do it better and right, or enhance my spiritual experience, so to speak. Also, there's a section in the back of the book that's answered prayers. I haven't written a single fucking thing in there, but I guarantee you I could fill it up. Because the blessings just keep coming, bro.
They do.
And there's a lot of good stuff. I mean, that Serenity is a really good book. That's by Mike Shea. That's a daily devotional. And then there's a book called New Day, New Me. It's a recovery journal, actually, that's really good as well. And that's also by Mike Shea.
Which is the one that you're reading every morning? You plugged that in the beginning of the...
Serenity.
Okay. All right. The one. Okay. Perfect. All right. So, Jason, number 4, what is the best suggestion you have ever received?
Wow. I don't know if it's the best, but it sticks out in my mind. Guy told me, because I've come to understand mindfulness to be a really like one of the most important aspects, I think, of serenity, staying in the moment. And this guy told me in early recovery, and I just loved it, so it stuck in my mind. He said, if you got 1 foot in yesterday and you got 1 foot in tomorrow, you're pissing all over today.
I love that one.
Or my sponsor always used to tell me, my old sponsor, he said, if you keep putting me on a pedestal, I'll piss all over you.
Oh, man. Early recovery. I remember those exact ones. Those were told to me, man. If you got 1 foot in tomorrow, 1 foot in the future, you're pissing all over your present. You're all over today. Absolutely. It's those things where you're like, gosh, that makes so much sense. It's, it's crazy, dude. It's crazy. All the cliches, they're all cliches and they're all true.
The shit don't make sense, though, until you practice these principles for a little while, and then you start to feel what a quality of life is like. And then you notice how lacking your life was in quality. Like, that's why the cliches don't make sense until you do the steps.
Absolutely. I love it. All right, so number 5, if you could give our newcomers only one suggestion, what would it be?
Really, honestly, there's no secret that's too dark for you to be accepted in this process of recovery. And there's nothing you've ever done or thought that anybody's gonna like. I'm not saying like nobody, like, maybe there'll be a douchebag here or there, but like you will be accepted and understood, and it'll be the greatest thing you ever do in your life, because that's the shit that's keeping you sick, man. You got to let it all out. You got to share that shit. So I would say vulnerability, and then when you start feeling better, stay humble, stay teachable. And that's it, man.
Be open to vulnerability.
That was like the catalyst, that's the launching point, is getting vulnerable. And then from there, you just can't get too full of yourself, man. Don't get cocky. Don't think you don't need this shit. And definitely don't let other people's bullshit in the program steer you away from the program. Like, this is a miracle. It's here for anyone that wants it. You know what I mean? And that's one thing I always tell people, Principles for Personalities is there for a reason. Because you can't let other people, scare you away.
Yes, exactly. It's all about the message, not the messenger.
Yeah, we all deserve recovery, man. We all deserve this.
Absolutely.
We've been through enough. And we've been through enough.
Jason, man, wow. What a story, dude. Seriously. Wow. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, man. I really appreciate you having me, and this was an honor. I'm really excited that I got to meet you, even though I'd like to meet you face-to-face sometime, but most definitely a pleasure and an honor to get to know you a little bit as well.
Well, you have to make a trip to Costa Rica, buddy.
Dude, right? That's pretty far.
It's a little far.
Maybe I'll get rich one day.
You will.
We'll see. I'm already rich, bro. I'm rich in spirit.
Yeah, same here, man. Same here. All right, folks, we've now reached the end of our show. Thanks for joining us. And as we say here in Costa Rica, pura vida.
Pura vida.
Thank you for joining us on the SHAIR Recovery Podcast. To check out the show notes page on this interview or to thank our guests for sharing their story, go to www.theshairpodcast.com. While you're on the website, don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter to stay up to date on the latest news, podcasts, and interviews. Want to be one of our guests and share your story? Then go to our website and click on the Share Your Story button. We share our inspiring recovery stories every Tuesday, so subscribe to our show on iTunes or Stitcher Radio to get your free weekly download. We'll see you then. The opinions shared on this show reflect those of the individual.